Well, yes, I did just get my nails done. Thank you for asking. So it is a very exciting time of the year because it's almost summer, and you know what that means. It's time to talk about the books that I want to read this summer. Now, I've got quite a fat stack here to share with you, and I am a very seasonal reader. Something about me is I love a good theme. I love atmosphere, and I think the thing I'm most looking for in a story is to feel transported, of course, to another world, but also to feel like I'm seasonally enjoying that setting. When summertime comes around, think coming of age summer vacation, conversations around the campfire, feeling that crunch of sand when you try and eat a sub, whatever that is for you that brings you that nostalgia. I want you to find a book in today's selection that you can use to give you summer vibes. And so here's how it's gonna work. And this is actually my mentality with every season. In my mind, there are specific categories of stories that fit the seasons. So in this case, I have like 10 to 11 subcategories of summer that to me just feel like summer. Some of them are obvious, some of them you might agree with, you might not, but to me, these are the books that I save until the summertime. So first, books that are set in the summertime, obviously, that is always going to be a summer read. And then we have books that are in a coastal setting. So it can be a beach, by the ocean, a lake, doesn't matter. If there's sand, it counts. And then also summer camp, which is one of my favorite subcategories. We have amusement parks. And then we have boats. So it can be a sailboat, a yacht, a dinghy, I don't care, it counts. Then we have pirates, which are some of my favorite reads during the summer. So we're gonna talk about that. We have Mermaids, which again is one of my absolute favorites. And then we just have romance. To me, romance is such a summer genre. There's something about it that just feels light and airy, and it's like a warm hug, sometimes with traumatic subplots, which we also really love. But to me, romance just embodies summertime. And then we also, okay, here's where it starts to get a little obscure. Now we have mythology, specifically Greek and Egyptian mythology. Now, I just feel like whenever I read a Greek retelling or a book about Egyptian lore, it really feels like it fits the summertime for me. There's something about it that feels appropriate, whereas if I'm to read more of a Nordic inspired story, that's something I would more read in the winter time. And again, of course, I'm not trying to put these mythology type of genres into a box, but for me, it just fits the energy that I want to read during that time. So we're gonna talk about that. And then also, in my own mind, the category of space is a subgenre of summer, okay? No part of my brain feels like I want to read a book about space in the wintertime. It's just not accessible. Summertime, the vibe of space and all of those things really fits to me. So I'm excited about a couple reads I have there. And then the last one, hear me out, hear me out. The last category to me that is summer is dinosaurs, okay? Think about it. What other season would dinosaurs fit into? None of them, okay? That's not a spring topic, I don't think. Definitely not fall or winter. So we're gonna save some dinosaur books for the summer, and I actually have a pick that I'm really excited about. So we're gonna talk about all of that. But here's what I'm thinking first. I think we really need to breathe, set the tone for today, and really get into the summer mindset. So very quick activity. I think we should pull a mermaid oracle card. So basically we're gonna pick a mermaid and she's going to give us an oracle, a vibe for today's sit down. So we can just be in the best spirits. And you guys, isn't this so cute? I actually bought this last summer and it's so fun. And let me show you how pretty they are. So there's all these cards and they have that, and then you pull over and it has all these different mermaids on them. Oh, with like different topics. So we have hope, miracles. Hopefully there's not any like bad vibes here. That would not be good. But we're just gonna pick one randomly. Okay. You guys pick one. Pick one. Okay, that's you picking one. we got Breaking Free. Oh, she's so pretty. Look at her. Okay, so here's what Breaking Free is gonna tell us for today. Hopefully it's not a bad one. Okay, I'm just gonna read the summary. It says, breaking free. Look honestly at your situation. Are you becoming entangled without realizing it? You have the power to break free from a disempowering situation. Say no. All right, you know what? Hell yeah. I'm down. What a way to set the tone. All right, now that we've got a little themed activity out of the way, let's get into the books. So these are going to be a mix of some new releases and backlist books that I've wanted to read for some time, but we're gonna section these out into categories. So the first category I wanna talk about is just coastal settings. So again, these can be by a lake or a beach. So the first book that I'm planning on reading is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. So this is a book that has been around for a very long time. I actually think I bought this about 5 years ago when the hype was just sky high with it. And I'm not gonna lie, I started it and I just wasn't a fan at the time, but there is a new show, I think, coming out based on this, and a lot of people really love it. So from what I know, it's just about a group of young friends who take a summer vacation, and something happens where now they dub themselves, these 4 friends, as the Liars. So it's a YA mystery thriller, and that's all I know about it. So I am definitely gonna read this, and I'm excited to see my thoughts because all I know about myself is when a TV show comes out or a movie adaptation, a little rebellious side of me is like, no, I am not watching that thing until I read the book. So sometimes that motivates me to pick up books that I wouldn't have, and that's the case with this one. Okay, so this next one is a little bit obscure, and I want to read The Endless Beach by Jenny Colgan. And this is the second book in the Mirror series. So the first book in the Mirror series is The Castle by the Sea by Jenny Colgan. And you guys, I actually read this book when I felt super burnt out. I had a little bit of depression and I just needed something that was gonna feel like a warm hug. But something about me too is I have a pretty low tolerance for books that are ultra cringy or ultra cheesy. Like, I can enjoy a book that doesn't take itself too seriously, but there has to be elements to it that are actually written well or that are actually wholesome, you know what I mean? So this book, I believe, fills that gap perfectly, and this is the one, if you want to read this series, you definitely need to start with. I would describe this as a Hallmark movie that doesn't try too hard, and it's not gonna give you the cringe that you get with some other books that try and do the same thing. This is more just about the coziness and heartwarming aspects of the story, and it's very calm and atmospheric. So we're following this woman named Flora, and she is working in London, and she hasn't been back to her childhood island home of Muir since she was young, and something caused her to leave her hometown, and now because of certain circumstances she's going back. And it's this quiet Scottish island. It's so beautiful. Genuinely, I can remember what it feels like to be on this island in reading this book. There were moments after I read this book that I missed being in that Scottish island and I just wanted to go back. So I think it's quite atmospheric. So she's traveling back to this island, reuniting with her family, her brothers, and her family owns a farm that supplies food to a lot of the restaurants and the resorts on this island. And while she's there, she develops a passion for cooking, and she actually ends up renovating and restoring this old cafe by the sea. Actually, there are a few chapters in this book that have recipes in them that you can make, which is so, so cute. I loved this book to pieces, and I am so excited to read the next book. It definitely is a good palate cleanser, and it's not high stakes, but there is a level of emotional depth to it that is very heartwarming, and I really, really enjoyed it. Okay, so the next book I want to read that is also a coastal vibe is The Sea by Iris Murdoch. So this is a classic. I believe it was written in 1974. And in this, we follow a man called Charles Arrowy, I believe, and he's leaving the London theatrical scene to go to this isolated home by the sea. So this is a man who's very full of himself. So he's going to this home by the sea to write a memoir about his love affair with this woman named Clementine, who I believe was his mentor. And then he also is stringing along this romance with this actress named Lizzie, and he just isn't a good guy. And then eventually all we know is that nothing goes according to plan and unusual people start showing up, crazy circumstances. I think there's a spectral magical realism element to it, and this man's ego is checked in the process. So I am excited to read this. I've been wanting to put more classics under my belt, and this earned Iris the Booker Prize in 1978, which is very cool. Okay, so the last book that is kind of coastal vibes, I really couldn't put this in any other category, is Swamp Story by Dave Barry. All right, y'all, this is a train wreck of a story, it sounds like, but I'm here for it. I actually have heard good things about this. It is supposed to be really hilarious, and I've never read a Dave Barry book, but this cover had me instantly intrigued, as did the dedication, because I do live in the state of Florida, and I just think this perfectly describes what it's like. It says, this book is dedicated to the state of Florida, which has its flaws, but which is never ever boring. And I would agree with that, fortunately and unfortunately. So let's talk about what this book is about. And I actually had to write this down, you guys, because it is so insane. So it says, Jessie, who's our main character, is trapped in a cabin in the Everglades, and she's trapped with her infant daughter and her ex-boyfriend, who's this wannabe reality star, and he's really full of himself. And she's desperate to find a way out of that situation, and she stumbles upon this long-lost treasure in the Everglades. Now, the problem is there's some really bad men who are traipsing through the Everglades who are also looking for this treasure, and somehow they know she has it. So all this is happening, right? Okay, and then meanwhile, there's a man named Ken Bortle of Bortle Brothers Bait and Beer, and he's hatched a scheme to lure tourists into his failing store, okay? And how he does this is he's made viral videos of the Everglades Melon Monster. And all the Everglades Melon Monster is an unemployed alcoholic newspaper man named Phil wearing a Dora the Explorer costume head.
Hola, soy Dora!
See, I told you, this is so unhinged, and we're not even done. So this plan works, and it brings in a horde of TikTokers to swarm into the swamp in search of the monster. And at the same time, these men are hunting for Jessie to get the treasure. And then outside of all of this, a presidential candidate arrives at the Everglades to start his campaign. So it just sounds like a book that is an absolute hot mess, perhaps in the best way. And I am pretty excited to read this. I obviously live in Florida, so a book that's set in the Everglades and it just depicts the hot mess that Florida is and can be, I think could be a fantastic read. So very interested in this one. Okay, so now let's get into a summer camp read. So I picked one that I am very interested in. I actually haven't heard of it till recently, and it is called The Honeys by Ryan LaSala. And what this book is about is this boy named Mars, and he had a twin sister named Caroline, and they were really inseparable, although he always felt he was a little inferior to her. And then she tragically dies under horrific circumstances, and we don't know what those are. So he becomes really set on figuring out what happened. Mars is a character who's very gender fluid, so he's felt very ostracized by his political family, and he was never really invited to attend this summer academy called Aspen Conservancy. So Caroline spent all of her summers here, and so Mars decides he's going to go in her place this summer. So he gets to the summer camp, and it's this very idyllic fairy tale-like setting, which just feels off. And he finds his sister's old friends called the Honeys. And why they're called the Honeys is behind their cabins are all of these beehives. In the synopsis, he describes the girls as beautiful and terrifying, and he is sure that they have something to do with Caroline's death. And then as he starts to uncover more and more, he starts to feel like there's something that's altering his thoughts, and he becomes convinced that something is hunting him. So I think this sounds really interesting. I'm noticing that I love summer camp settings when it's mixed with a thriller. There's some really good books that do that so well. I think my favorite is The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. So if you're looking for a summer camp thriller that has all of the vibes to it, that's a great one to pick up. All right, so again, I have a thriller I want to read, and this is for the Amusement Park subgenre. So that book is Wonderland by Jennifer Hillier. So I have read one Jennifer Hillier, and I read The Winter People earlier this year when it was wintertime, and that book was fantastic. The vibes were really dark, obviously winter-like, icy, but also a little bit ethereal, and it was very, very creepy, very Pet Sematary vibe. So I thought it'd be appropriate to read another book by her, and it is set in an amusement park, which in itself I think is already creepy, because this amusement park in the story is very retro style. It seems very charming, but then it says at night it's a completely different story. So we follow this woman named Vanessa, and she is a police chief. It's her first day in the town of Seaside, Washington, and she gets a call to come into the amusement park, and she finds a homeless man's body that has been decaying for quite some time. It's just rotting in the park. And then on top of that, there's a teenager who works at the amusement park whose photo went viral that morning, displaying some defiant behavior. So you've got this dead man's body, this missing teenager, and apparently it's very creepy, carnival vibes, there's a mystery, and it implies also that there's maybe a killer on the loose that they're looking to catch along the way. So I am just here for those vibes. Really, I don't think there's any other time of the year when I would want to read a creepy carnival setting, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, so the last thriller I have for us today is in the boats subcategory, and this is called The Last One by Will Dean. So I've actually wanted to read this for some time because the plot is very intriguing, but I wanted to wait until the summertime because it's just the vibes for it. So the plot is there's a woman named Kaz, and she goes on a cruise ship with the man that she's with. So they're in love, they're having a wonderful time on their first night, and then she wakes up and Pete, the man she's with, is gone. He's missing, she doesn't know where he is. And then not only that, but when she walks out of her room, all of the cabin doors are open. And as she goes through the ship, nobody is there and nothing's disturbed. She can't tell what's gone wrong, but she's the only one on this entire cruise ship and she doesn't know why. What? I mean, even just reading that, I was like immediately hooked. I have to know what's going on. Can you imagine? So I will definitely be reading that, and I'm so intrigued to see what's going on there. Why is she the only one left? Why was nothing disturbed? Immediately it has me thinking there's gotta be something supernatural going on, but I don't know, we're just gonna have to see. Okay, so the next category is probably my favorite, and that is pirates. So the first one I am dying to read is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Hope I'm saying that right. And this is the first book in a trilogy. The cover is absolutely stunning, and I've seen it on shelves for quite some time. I just haven't picked it up. To be honest, I don't think I was fully aware of the plot until recently. So something I already love about the plot is it's not a young female protagonist. It's actually a mature woman who is retired from the pirate life. So she's had her notorious career as a pirate in the Indian Ocean, but she's now retired. But she's approached by someone who offers her a job that she cannot refuse. A previous colleague's daughter has gone missing. She's kidnapped, and there's a very large sum being offered to her to rescue her. So this involves her reuniting with her past crew and having one last adventure, and I'm just excited to go on that adventure. And really, there is nothing better than a pirate seas adventure in the summertime. I cannot think of anything better. And then the next pirate book I want to read this summer is actually Saint. So this is the prequel book to the Fable duology. And if you have not read the Fable duology, hold on, let me show you. It's these books, which are absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. Look at that. They are so pretty. And this is a YA pirate fantasy. And the book Saint is about how her father, Fable's father, Saint, became the most feared and revered pirate in the Narrows, and how he met Fable's mother as well. Fable, who is the daughter of Saint, is all about her and her story. So, and she is the daughter of this really revered pirate, and her story starts 4 years after a storm tragically killed her mother when they were out at sea. And so her father, Saint, marooned her on this island, and her mission is to get off the island, find her father, and just figure out her purpose. So she enlists the help of a young trader named West, and then so begins the seaside pirate-like adventures. And specifically this book, while I'll say the story wasn't groundbreaking, It's really fun and it's very atmospheric. There are so many scenes of Fable just in the open ocean, diving to the bottom, collecting things and scavenging. And I don't know, it's just very immersive and I really enjoyed it. I think it's the perfect summer vibes. The escapism in these books is so, so good. All right, so now let's talk about mermaids, the subgenre we've all been waiting for. We love to see it. And the first book I'm gonna read this summer is none other than Sirens by Amelia Hart. And this book covers two timelines. So one timeline is 2019. There's a girl named Lucy, and in the middle of the night, she finds her hands around her ex's throat trying to kill him. So she's like, what the heck? And she goes to her sister's house in this small coastal town and see if her sister can help her piece together the dreams behind the attack. But when she gets to her sister's town, her sister's nowhere to be found. So she spends some time there trying to piece together what happened to her sister, and she starts to learn rumors about this town, that men have always gone missing, there was a baby abandoned in a sea cave, and there are whispers of women's voices in the waves. We know. And then also the other timeline is in 1800. There are these two sisters named Mary and Eliza, and they are forced from their home in Ireland and put on a convict ship to Australia. And as their ship takes them further and further from home, they notice strange changes happening with their bodies. I actually bought this because of the sprayed edges, you guys, I know, but after reading the plot, I'm pretty intrigued. I want to know what's going to happen. I read Wayward, or part of Wayward. I actually didn't finish it. It was just wrong place, wrong time. But she was very big into dual timelines with that book as well. And so I'm curious to see how she does it here. But it does sound like an intriguing plot, and I'm just hoping it gives me the mermaid siren vibes that I'm looking for. All right, so the next mermaid book I want to read this summer is actually going to be a new release. It's coming out July 15th, and it's called In the Veins of the Drowning by Cassidy. So this plot sounds interesting. I think it's going to be a series. It has to do with our main character, Imogen, and she's living in a world where people believe sirens are monstrous, and there's a king and his captain trying to hunt them down where she lives. So she's in hiding, she's keeping herself from the sea, and she's having to really suppress her bloodlust and hide her black wings so she's not discovered, which is interesting because it seems like black wings are an element that sirens have, which never heard of that before. And in this story, a neighboring king comes to visit and discovers what she is. So he proposes to her that they build a partnership so they can save both of their kingdoms from the true darkness that exists. And of course, there is a romance that develops here. And I will say, I am not super intrigued by this plot line. I think as a new release, it has me interested, and the title, In the Veins of the Drowning, sounds really cool, honestly. But I'm surprised that the plot doesn't sound more intricate. So we'll see. Sometimes the synopsis does sell itself short, but I'll be reading it regardless and sharing my thoughts. All right, so now let's get into romance, because again, I just think romance is a very summery genre, and two of these books actually are set in the summertime. The first one, which many of y'all will have heard of, is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I picked this up a couple of years ago, and it just wasn't the right timing for me to read it. It just wasn't catching my interest, but I definitely want to give it a go this year because I know a lot of people love this. So on the blurb, it says this is told over the course of 6 years and 1 weekend. So you have our main character called Persephone, or Percy, which I have to say, I'm almost wishing some books would just go back to more realistic basic names for characters. You know, like where are the Jessicas or the Caitlins or Maggies? Like those are all wonderful names. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes like Persephone, like let's calm down. This is a beach romance. But I do like the name. So Percy, or Persephone, and this guy called Sam were childhood friends, and they would go vacation together every summer at a lake house, I believe. And eventually their friendship blossomed into something more. But then Percy makes a really terrible mistake and it damages their relationship, and their entire romance falls apart. But in the present day, they are returning to the lake for his mother's funeral. And so that's where they are reuniting. I think I have an idea of what she did that was so messed up. I think it's a little obvious, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. If you guys know what she did, is that what she did? It seems obvious, right? I don't know. I'll let you guys know. So the other summery book I want to read, summer romance, is Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop. So I actually never heard of this book, but I saw Shaughnessy, who she's an awesome booktuber. She mentioned this book, and she actually only said one thing that hooked me and sold me on reading it. So this book is obviously a romance that's set in Tulum during a wedding, and a romance occurs and the guy rents a yacht for her so she can spend the day reading and relaxing. I mean, I don't need to know anything else. I really, really don't. So that's all I'm actually gonna say about this book. Yeah, he rents her a yacht to read for the day. Do we need anything else? No, we don't. All right, so next, I'm going to read Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is actually a really good copy. It's a signed copy. I've had this for a while and I've just never gotten to Happy Story. I know it's a lot of people's favorite. And like all Emily Henry books, it sounds messy, but it's gonna be a mess that makes me feel all the heartwarming things, you know? So this has to do with a couple named Harriet and Wynn, and they're going through a breakup. They broke up 6 months ago, but their friends actually have no idea. Because every year this friend group takes a yearly vacation to a cottage in Maine, and it's the last summer that they're gonna get to do this because the cottage is being sold. So Harriet and Wynn don't wanna ruin it for their friends, and so they have to pretend like they're still together during this week when they're staying at the cottage. So they're sharing the same bedroom. And what's weird about this is their friends know them better than anyone. So can they really keep it a secret? What's gonna happen? And I will say this one, I feel like it's hitting me in the feels because what makes this emotional is they were already together and now they're going through the pain of like having to pretend like they're together when they're not. And I feel like that's really just sad. And I don't know, I feel like this one's gonna hit me in my feels a lot. So we'll see how this goes. And again, it's set in a Maine coastal cottage. Perfect. All right, so the next category is mythology. And so the first book I want to read is none other than Circe by Madeline Miller. So this is one of those books, if you've seen my videos, my biggest book fear is books that I think are gonna be my favorite. I don't like them. Like that is the biggest fear I have. And Song of Achilles, that book just completely changed me. It sparked so much of my love for reading and it's absolutely brilliant. And I have such a deep connection to Greek mythology. You know, some of us were raised as dragon kids or fairy kids or space kids. Like I was a Greek mythology kid. I was given my first Greek mythology guide when I was like 5. And I know there are some of you out there like me. And it just means so much to me. It really just is something that feels like home. And so I absolutely love how Madeline Miller writes. And I love this time of just Greek retellings. And I love the story of Circe. I love it all, okay? So for those of you who don't know, Circe is the daughter of the sun god named Helios, and she develops powers as a witch. So her powers are that she can turn her enemies into monsters that then can fight for her, I believe. And so Zeus becomes really intimidated by this, so he traps her on an island, and you basically spend time with her as she meets different people on this island. So we see some familiar faces like the Minotaur and Odysseus, and she has to confront the fact that she's developed bonds with certain mortals, but then also does she want to stop associating with the gods? And I'm excited to read her story. I think she's going to become very special to me. And also you guys, if you are a fan of Greek mythology, or if you're not, it doesn't matter. Please, please listen to Epic the Musical. If you've never heard of it, look it up on TikTok, YouTube, wherever. It is so good. There is a certain segment where Circe's in it and she sings and it goes so hard. It's so good. But that's like all we sing in our household right now is Epic the Musical. So that also has me motivated to pick this back up. Okay, so the next kind of mythology book I want to read is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. Hope I'm saying that right. And the tagline says the mummy meets death on the Nile. I mean, also some lore about me, I was a Mummy kid. So I also was raised on The Mummy. We watched it like every other day in my household. It just is my childhood. And Rachel Weisz in that movie is just absolutely everything. Brendan Fraser as well, but like, oh my God, everyone is just so amazing. So I have been looking for a book set on Egyptian lore for a while, and this looks really fun. I think it's a YA duology. So it has to do with our main character, Inez, and she is brought up in upper society in the 19th century in Buenos Aires. And so her parents tragically pass away. She ends up inheriting their fortune and acquiring a new guardian. And this new guardian is an archaeologist who is in partnership with his Egyptian brother-in-law. So she sails to Cairo and gets under the wing of this archaeologist, and her father actually left her in the care of this mysterious golden ring. And when she gets to Cairo, the old magic that is tethered to this ring brings her down a path. Her parents' disappearance is not what she thought. And of course, her guardian has an annoyingly handsome assistant. Like, I will say, why do they always have to be annoyingly handsome? Why can't it be amazing that he's handsome? I don't know. I almost like the narratives that balance the line between saying, oh, it's the annoying handsome assistant and it's so annoying that he's so hot, and the woman just not losing herself completely and being like, oh my God, he's the sun and stars and moon and I can't concentrate because he's so hot. I feel like realistically there'd be a middle where we wouldn't forget the mission, but we'd also just love the fact that he's super hot. You know what I'm saying? Okay, anyway. Moving on. So now we have the category of space. And you guys, the book I am most looking forward to in this category is Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is highly anticipated. A lot of us are looking forward to this, and I'm so excited. So this follows our main character called Joan. She's a professor of astronomy, and then she sees an ad that is looking for the first women scientists to join NASA's space shuttle program. It's set in the 1980s, summertime, and she begins training. So she develops relationships and bonds with the other candidates. I believe there is also a romance maybe with one of them. And it says in the December of 1984, there's something that occurs in one mission that changes everything. And that's all we know. It's very ambiguous. I know Taylor Jenkins Reid likes to keep it very mysterious, and then when we read it, we're just wrecked, and it's one of the best things we've ever read. So we'll see how that goes. I will definitely be doing a reading vlog on this one because I'm very excited for it. All right, and then also, y'all know what this one's about. It's called Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So I actually do have this guy right here, and I started this one a couple years ago, realized it just wasn't the right time, but I'm ready to pick it back up. I remember I started it the audiobook, and I did really enjoy it, but I think I want to pair the audiobook with the physical copy. So for those of you who don't know what this is about a man named Ryland, and he wakes up as the last surviving member of a space mission. So he wakes up on this spacecraft and he remembers nothing. And you just follow him as he has to figure out what's going on, and then he has to solve for this extinction level threat to humanity. It's all very interesting, and what I remember is the writing is very tongue-in-cheek, very funny. And also I think very accessible. There's a lot of scientific jargon in here, but I think Andy Weir does a really good job of making a story like this accessible to all readers. And from what I hear about this, people who don't love sci-fi, they still love this book. So I'm excited to read it. And again, I'm gonna pair it with the audiobook because from what I listened to so far, it's absolutely amazing. Okay, so the last category is dinosaurs. Listen, dinosaurs, it's a summer vibe. It's a summer topic. And here's the thing, a little backstory. So I was gonna read Jurassic Park, okay? Because I've actually never technically read it, because what happened, Taylor and I met when we were very young. This is Taylor. And when we met, his favorite book was Jurassic Park. He absolutely loved it. And I was young, you guys, okay? So he's like, hey, read it because I love it. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll totally read that book. And I didn't have like the interest in books that I have now. And so I just felt bad for not wanting to read it. Something happened where eventually I was just like, yeah, I thought it was great. And I didn't actually read it, you guys. And Taylor, like, we're just getting this out on the table. I never actually read that book. So I feel like now I have a relationship to Jurassic Park where I feel kind of guilty about it because, yeah, I didn't actually read it at the time. But we will be getting to that one day. I think this summer I wanted to find a dinosaur book that was a little more obscure, one I'd never heard of, because I do know the plot of Jurassic Park, right? Like all of us pretty much do. So I wanted something that was a little different. And so a book I actually found on Reddit was this book called Raptor Red. You guys, this sounds so good. This book is set 120 million years ago in prehistoric Utah in the plains, and we spend time with what the author refers to as an unforgettable heroine called Raptor Red, and she is a female raptor dinosaur. And what's really cool about this is we're being told this story through the lens of a paleontologist called Robert T. Baker, and he tells us the story through the perspective of Raptor Red's mind. So it says we go through her fight for survival, moments of loss, a lengthy migration, evading predators, and I just feel like this book, it could either be okay or become an all-time favorite. I really don't think there's any in between. So that sounds really unique and really different. And if you've read this book, please tell me. I have never met anyone who's read this book. I think it's kind of obscure, maybe. You guys will have to tell me, but I'm so curious about it. All right, my friends, thank you for hanging out with me today and discussing my summer reads. I hope you found something in this stack or in this walkthrough that you're excited to pick up. And if there's a book that we haven't mentioned that you're excited to pick up, tell me in the comments below so we can help each other out in finding our next amazing summer read. And if you liked hanging out with me today, make sure you like and subscribe. I would very much appreciate it. And I will talk to you very soon. Bye.